Namaste. Today I want to chat with you about eating consciously and trying to understand this deeper. Why this has appeared on earth that we should eat in a certain way. And what I'm going to talk about is energy, of course, being my great interest. Energy. So naturally, what we start to see in this field of spirit is that the form is like, in a way, more like the envelope. It's just like the outer fragments of what is inside. It's the package. It's the energy we're really interested in. You know, when you breathe in air in a way is the package. What you really want, what really gives life, is prana. And that's been an interesting conversation because there's been stories in India and so forth that say that people have been buried underground, been asked to be buried as part of their meditation, where they have no access to air as a package, but for some reason they can access the prana and they can live for decades under the ground. You might have heard of such stories. Or some people say, hey, like I just have to be around someone who's drunk. I don't have to drink myself and I feel drunk. So in that way, again, it's like they don't have access to the alcohol. They're not putting the alcohol in their body, but they're accessing the spirit of the alcohol, which gives them the feeling of drunkenness. And there's quite a lot of examples like that. So when we're eating an animal, it's like there's the flesh maybe that has an effect on our physical body, but the energy also has an effect. So if we eat an animal that's been under circumstances of cruelty, which is, like in many big farms, that's just the basic day-to-day lifestyle is cruelty. What energy are we going to eat? And I always have to pause at that and go, okay, here I am on this planet, and I'm surrounded by these people. And they seem really sweet people, they're quite nice and friendly, and they seem quite kind, and they're like against animal cruelty, and they would never torture their own pet, they would never take their cat or their dog and put it in a circumstance of torture. And they wouldn't, tear out its teeth or keep it in a tiny cage for its entire life or something like that. They wouldn't do that. They would find that horrendous. And if someone did that, they would be shocked and angry and, amazed at it. Yet they do it daily. They do it every day. Every time they eat an egg or every time they eat a chicken, they're doing it because that animal has been kept in a tiny cage. It's had its claws and its beak taken out so that it won't peck itself to death and it won't peck another bird to death, because they get so frustrated in these cages they try to kill themselves or they try to kill another bird. So they have these claws and beaks taken out. And maybe other reasons as well. I'm not going to go into the entire farming industry's mechanisms. But what I'm trying to say is the way the egg arrives at your table, when it's not done in a conscious way, which is 99% of all farming, is profoundly cruel. It's insane. And if you had to do that to an animal, you would think that you were a monster. Or if someone did that to a cat or their dog or something, you would think they were a monster, But yet every day we are doing this on the planet. And then that energy in the animal is still in the animal when you eat it. Like maybe a deep sadness, maybe a deep anger, maybe a deep kind of giving up, just giving up. A lot of them just die from illness and from whatever. They just find dead animals every day in the chicken cages, just there they are. They kind of just give up. And then you eat that. And you feed your 5-year-old that, So what happens when you feed your 5-year-old suicidal energy? Or when you feed your 15-year-old that really desperate energy that's just giving up? I mean, Do you think that's a good idea? Is that an intelligent thing to do? We know Einstein has told us you can't destroy energy. So if here is an animal in deep suffering and you eat that suffering, what do you think happens to that energy? Well, you get it. You get it. You eat it, right? So that's an interesting thing all by itself. Just like our willingness to torture animals on a daily basis and our willingness to eat the energy of torture. Yeah, yummy. This torture tastes so sweet, you know. And maybe people think because they can't see it, it's not happening, but it is happening. It is happening. Daily, every day, to billions and billions of animals, of beings on our planet. And even if you don't eat it, it creates an energy in the field of torture, of hurt. I'm not saying all farms. There are some farms that are doing much better. But the majority of farms on Earth are practicing really cruel practices. And you are eating that. And you are agreeing to torturing another being so you can have convenience in your fridge. And then we have to look at Senna, I came to your house every day and gave you and your family food. I was like this generous kind of mother being that just kept feeding you and giving you food. And your response was to torture me. It's like, it's crazy. Now, I'm talking about the farming that is that, which is, in the case of chickens, it is 99% of chicken farms that do this. In case of cows in South Africa, I'm not sure the degree, the percentage. I think in countries, like America, it's really bad. So this is one reason why people are saying, please, we don't agree with the torture of animals, and also to torture a being that is so generous with you and is giving you life and is feeding you. It doesn't. How can that expand awareness, intelligence, consciousness? It doesn't. It contracts it. And it might be, in many cases, the source of depression, of suicide. You could be feeding your kids this, and then maybe a child is committing suicide. You go, why did you commit suicide? And there might be some reason. And maybe it's because of the food you're giving this child. Maybe this child is very sensitive. And every time he eats an animal that has had a horrible life, which is going to be much of the animals that he eats or she eats, he's receiving suicidal energy, or deep depression, or deep hurt, or deep anger, or deep giving up feeling, Maybe it's the food that is creating that. And I'm not saying only that. Anything I say is, there's also many other factors, but I'm giving you this factor. And then what people don't understand about eating cows, people really don't understand about it, is that cow farming, according to Cowtopia, there's a documentary, and if maybe you can do your own research and your own logical, just look around your countryside, has taken over 70% of all land. Because there's the cow farm, but then a lot of cow farms need feeding lots. So then they grow soya or something like that to feed the cows, right? And they seem to need a lot of water and a lot of food to grow and then they are killed. So it's like then you have to start again, Unlike a nut tree, which once the tree's grown, it just keeps producing nuts. You don't cut it down and start, it's not that it's there and it just keeps on. Well, and so if you think about that, if cow farms have taken 70%, well, we have to eat something, but fruit and vegetables take a lot less land to produce food. Like you could take a city and turn pavements and rooftops and parks into fruit and vegetable gardens, like is happening on the planet. And you would hardly need any outside farms outside the city. So, but you can't really do that with cows in a city, it wouldn't feed the population. And what that does, it destroys our forests and our wildlife. So there was this movie called King Solomon Mines that was filmed in Africa in 1950. And in that film, there's an amazing scene of a stampede of wild animals. So many animals. And they went, on a stampede. That doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced by cows. So people go, how can you stop killing wild animals? How can you stop the extinction of animals? How terrible it is, these hunters who hunt lions in Africa and so forth. But actually, the vast responsibility of the extinction of animals on our planet is meat eaters. You eat meat, you're responsible for the extinction of animals on our planet. So that's another thing. And then there's this quality, this really valuable energy that Dr. Emoto, who did a lot of research on the water, you might know him, he spoke of the Japanese word hado. Hado. Now, hado means the nature of the energy connected to something. So the hado of like a natural waterway that's full of life and animals swimming in the water and, has a really alive energy, the hado is very high. But the hado of like a polluted river that has no life in it, stagnant and something like this, the hado is very low. And so that's why sometimes people always value things by their financial value. So if my car is worth a lot of money, that's valuable. But your tree at home might not be as valuable as your car because it costs less money. But in this conversation of hado, the tree may have a lot more value than the car because it has a live, living, wonderful energy that is giving you caresses and love every day. The hado of the tree is more valuable than the hado of the car. And so even though like you may live somewhere or not have access to wild animals on earth, just that they existing and living in a wildness, and if you have been amongst wild animals like here in Africa, you'll know what I mean. There's a great energy value to their existence, even though they may not make you money. So funny, hey, we consider money the most valuable thing on earth. There's so much greater value. When you start to live a while, you find out what's truly valuable. When you're on the spiritual path a while, you find out what's truly valuable. And it has nothing to do with money, right? So that a wild animal exists, that great forests live, these beings of forests live on earth, brings hado, a powerful energy to this planet, which feeds all of us in ways we can't imagine. And when they go, we feel them somewhere in our being, So many people are talking about, there's that conversation about protein and that being valuable to the human body. But the conversation of wild animals just living and existing and roaming, or forests living and existing and roaming in their way, that information is less known. It's like less understood, the great value of that and how that feeds you. So when you go spend a weekend in nature and you come back and you feel, wow, I've been rinsed, you can actually look different, you look cleaner, like the city's been rinsed from your skin. Because there's a value of it. Yeah, so your business might be tearing down forests or selling properties that tear forests down, and you'll make a lot of money, but you'll lose the hado. You'll lose it outside of you, and you'll lose it inside of you. And then that inner landscape becomes that landscape of what you eat, of the torture you eat, of what we destroy, so we can get our addiction, because meat is our first addiction, and sugar. It's like we get addicted to it, And we can get our fix, and we miss the true energy. So these are some reasons to really consider what we're eating, for your own mental sanity even, or your children's sanity, for the equilibrium of emotional health. Consider what you eat. If you eat cruelty, what do you get? Okay, you get a tasty meal maybe, or what your mouth considers tasty. But what do you get in the energy? What do you live with day to day? Maybe, you can be carrying that depression from the animal. You can take an antidepressant to numb it, but how? That numbs your creativity and your sexual energy as well. It numbs everything, So it's quite a cost to have a piece of a chop in the mouth, Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to speak about, so I was in Spain some years ago at a conference, and there was this really fascinating conversation that one man brought in. I forget his name, sadly. And he spoke about how in our modern day world, we've separated from the death of eating. And the death that comes with food, we separate from it. It happens over there. And that we should find a way to reconnect to the death of our food. Like if we're going to eat a fish, you kill it. If you're going to eat a chicken, you kill it. Of course, a cow you can't kill every time you eat one because they're quite big. So, but at least once a year or once every 5 years, you kill the cow. Like bring yourself back to the death of your food. Feel that death chi. Feel the energy of death of what you eat by being the one who kills the animal that you eat. And that also can then maybe stop you from wanting to eat 4 different animals in one day. Pig in the morning, then fish, then a chicken, then meat. You might not want to kill so many animals in a day. If you really had to go and kill each animal that you are eating. And yeah, that brings another conversation to reconnecting to death as such in the West. So yeah, not my usual conversation, but I can see, like when people try and suggest a vegetarian lifestyle or a vegan lifestyle, a lot of people don't get it at all. And I'm sure they'll have their own very divine, there are many more reasons, why one could start including this in your life. And when you have had a pattern of eating a certain way your entire life, it might be hard to change overnight. So my suggestion is like you have like one day of just vegan where you don't eat any animal product. See what that feels like. And then one meal a day which is vegetarian. Like next, just depends on where you're at now. But just wherever you are now, add something. Because it takes a while to change. Our addictions are deep in the body around food. Our beliefs are deep around food. It can take a long time to shift that. But actually, vegan cheese is tastier than normal cheese. The body prefers it. It's amazing. Not all vegan cheese, but yeah, when you find the right ones. And when you start to cook food with love and consciousness, and you'll find it will satisfy you beyond any meat dish, actually, when it's really cooked with love and consciousness. So you have to learn how to make beautiful food with vegetables and teach your body this is food. Vegetables are food. And get through that childhood resistance that vegetables are not food and you want your sausage, So take time. You don't have to stop everything tomorrow because you'll fail. And that's maybe the trouble people have. It's like you got to be vegan tomorrow, and like most people can't do that. But you can have a vegan meal tomorrow. And you can say to your restaurant, okay, I don't want to eat your meat if it's not free range. You can talk to your restaurant about that. You can talk to your supermarket about that. Like, we want more free range products here. We want more food that's grown with love. Animal products, animals that are kept with care and kindness for the great generosity of them giving us life. Let's be generous to them by at least being kind to them while they live, So you can start to ask for these things, and many people are, but the more that ask, the more we get, right? We are consumer culture. If the customer asks for a thing, we have to give it, isn't it? So be part of that great calling of the beautiful Hado, where wild animals have a place to live and forests can expand and bring us great energies, and animals that we eat can have a life of joy and sweetness until their death. And then that's far less impactful in so many directions. Even if you're not someone who eats them, you can feel that in the field sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, food for thought, hey? I always say eat cruelty free. It just tastes better. I hope you get me. Namaste.